time. Grudge and selfishness we destroy this time. A future for every boy or girl this time. Faith is to the heart like grapes on a ripe grapevine. To all those who perceive the struggle, the silver lining of the dark cloud that hovers over our freedom and liberty can be seen clearly now. Walter Sizulu, Oliver Tambo, Paul Bogle, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela. The struggle continues. Haiti, Bosnia, Serbia, Afghanistan, Palestine, and all the other countries torn apart by the wicked imposters of war and crime. Perseverance and strength goes together. The struggle continues.
We're all moving on together. So we must plan collectively for a brighter day. No one knows what's in store for the future. True dedication can get us there. Independence is a milestone in our march to prosperity. Now St. Vincent and the Grenadines have a real nationality. We are a nation of many races and have tried hard to integrate. The strength of so many faces shall be the prospects of our fate. So in this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. This is a time of national freedom, so share our love with someone. The 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all the we. Hey, 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 hey. While we take this stand as a nation, let us not forget our past. For this future we praise our heroes who fought slavery to the last. Special honors to Marcus Garvey. His sacrifice gave us all a chance. And all the men who fought in this century to bring us this day of independence. So in this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. Now this is a time of national freedom, so share our love with someone. The 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all of we. Hey, 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 hey. Though some manipulate the franchise of world adult suffrage, there's still hope of a bright tomorrow for all the underprivileged. Let love excel our wishes, our advancement needs plenty of work. Remember, back is that for the nation that upholds less action and lots of talk. In this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. Now this is a time of national freedom, so share love with someone. The 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all of we. My people join hand in hand now. Put your differences aside. Get your heart hearts and soul together. We got to build this nation with pride. Work in harmony with good leaders. Never elect no one here to rule. Then we can feel at home like good comrades. Our people must not be election tools. So in this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. Now this is a time of national freedom, so share our love with someone. The 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one SSC, one destiny for all of we.
There is renewed tension in the world today. The two superpowers are keeping a close eye on the developing war between Iran and Iraq in the Persian Gulf, a war which seems to be escalating.
The Soviet Union says its fighter pilot shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007 after the aircraft violated Soviet airspace and reportedly ignored instructions from its flight.
This is Caribbean Vibes.
The world getting crucial, we need a solution. Dismally crucial, there's just one solution. The hope for tomorrow is loving today. Try love, it gonna help us, I say. Israelites, love is the answer, black and white. Love is the answer, South Africa. Love is the answer, Nicaragua. Love is the only answer. Hey, hey. Hey, hey. Nuclear weapon, self-destruction, chemical warfare, missiles everywhere, B-1 bombers, rocket launchers, catastrophe awaiting we, I say. America, love is the answer. Russia, love is the answer. Great Britain, love is the answer. France and Poland, love is the only answer.
This is Caribbean Vibes.
Religious fighting, human rights dying, civilian death squad, terrorism very bad, discriminating against God's race, apartheid, black genocide, I say. Iraq, Iran, love is the answer. Northern Ireland, love is the answer. South Africa, love is the answer. Haiti, Libya, love is the only answer. Wouldn't it be nice, instead of having all this news about world aggression and world tension, for us to have one big party, a peace party, with all the world leaders, I mean all the world leaders, the capitalists, the communists, the leftists and the rightists, the racists, the idealists, the reformists, I mean all the voices. Wouldn't it be nice? And in this party, all we're gonna talk about is love. Yes, love. And how to make it the answer to all of today's problems. After all, we are all God's children. Let's come together, love one another. Reformation, a new direction. Destroy every weapon immediately. Love, not hate, before it's too late. I say, Lebanon, love is the answer. Afghanistan, love is the answer. El Salvador, love is the answer. Cuba, Singapore, love is the only answer. Love is the answer. East Germany, love is the answer. West Germany, love is the answer. North Korea, love is the only answer. South Korea.
This is Caribbean Vibes.
Love is the answer. The only answer. Love is the answer. The only answer. Love is love.
Somebody take me home, home. Somebody take me home, home. Somebody take me home, home. Somebody take me home. Hey. So many places in the world, so many beautiful things to see, but none of it compares to home. I'm from paradise, SPG. So from the hills to the mountains, high, high, high. Every man, every woman, every child. If you're proud to be Vincy, put your hands up high and let me hear you say, this island is mine. Jump and say, jump and say, jump and say. This island is mine. Jump and say, jump and say, jump and say. This island is mine. Jump and say, jump and say, jump and say. This island is mine. Wave and say, wave and say. Take a drive to the countryside, drop the window and feel the vibe. There's no other place I'd rather be. Me Vincy girl by my side. I tell them all the while, we don't have no gold nor oil, but we have wonderful people rich with beautiful smiles. From the hills to the mountains, high, high, high. Every man, every woman, every child. If you're proud to be Vincy, put your hands up high and let me hear you say, this island is mine. Jump and say, jump and say, jump and say. This island is mine. Jump and say, jump and say. can find me up in the hills. I'm doing it the Vincy way. I wish every day was Vincy day. So if you're proud of your country, put up on your hands and say, from the hills to the mountains, aye, aye, aye. Every man, every woman, every child. If you're proud to be Vincy, put your hands up high. And let me hear you say, this island is mine. Jump and say, jump and say, jump and say. This island is mine. Jump and say, jump and say, jump and say. This island is mine. Jump and say, jump and say, jump and say. This island is mine. Wave and say, wave and say. Whoa, yeah. Radler, Skinny Fabulous. This island is mine. Oh, 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 oh.
We're all moving on together. So we must plan collectively for a brighter day. No one knows what's in store for the future. True dedication can get us there. Independence is a milestone in our march to prosperity. Now St. Vincent and the Grenadines have a real nationality. We are a nation of many races and have tried hard to integrate. The strength of so many faces shall be the prospects of our fate. So in this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. This is a time of national freedom, so share a love with someone the 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all the we. Hey, 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 hey. While we take this stand as a nation, let us not forget our past. For this future we praise our heroes who fought slavery to the last. Special honors to Marcus Garvey, his sacrifice gave us all a chance. And all the men who fought in this century to bring us this day of independence. So in this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. Now this is a time of national freedom, so share a love with someone the 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all of we. Hey, 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 hey. Though some manipulate the franchise of world adult suffrage, there's still hope of a bright tomorrow for all the underprivileged. Let love excel our wishes, our advancement needs plenty of work. Remember, back is that for the nation that upholds less action and lots of talk. In this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. Now this is a time of national freedom, so share love with someone the 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all of we. Hey, 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 hey. My people join hand in hand now. Put your differences aside. Get your hearts and soul together. We got to build this nation with pride. Work in harmony with good leaders. Never elect no one here to rule. Then we can feel at home like good comrades. Our people must not be election tools. So in this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. Now this is a time of national freedom, so share our love with someone. The 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all of us.
There is renewed tension in the world today. The two superpowers are keeping a close eye on the developing war between Iran and Iraq in the Persian Gulf, a war which seems to be escalating.
The Soviet Union says its fighter pilot shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007 after the aircraft violated Soviet airspace and reportedly ignored instructions from its pilot.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Though the way that may seem it right unto you dismay. We were born to be free, but survive such rough history. Yet life still goes on in the battlefield. Our existence is a mystery. Coming through from the start, they learn how to beat me. Coming through from the start, they know we were strong. But I know enough is enough, cause I can't be tougher than tough. We couldn't make every single dream come true. We gotta do what we gotta do. We got to fight on, get up, stop, complain. It's a universal thing. From sunrise to sunset, every day is a living strain. Fight on, never mind the sweat. You got to sweat to get every good seed you sow brings a fruit wherever you plant it. Perseverance and strength go together. time and implement what we learn this time. So every man and woman can earn this time. Where there's a will, there's a way. Though the way that may seem it right unto you dismay. We were born to be free, but survive such rough history. Yet life still goes on in the battlefield. Our existence is a mystery. Coming through from the start, they learn how to beat me. Coming through from the start, they know we were strong. But I know enough is enough, cause I can't be tougher than tough. We couldn't make every single dream come true. We gotta do what we gotta do. We got to fight on, get up, stop, complain. It's a universal thing. From sunrise to sunset, every day is a living strain. Fight on, never mind the sweat. You got to sweat to get. Every good seed you sow brings a fruit wherever you plant it. Perseverance and strength go together. Triumph in all its reign, follow after. Signs reveal it's a shortened span, and time wasting is a crime. We must move in retaliation this time, and clean up racial oppression this time. Make way for the upcoming generation this time. Where there's a star, there's a light. We got to shine, it's we who have to make things go right. Don't sit and wait on a hand. Sometimes that hand must push you down. To achieve your goals, you must go for it. Every monarch wears his own crown. Conquer every obstacle you encounter. Many will be waiting to see you fall. But if you opt to find something new, you must follow every clue. So at the end of the road, when you find your treasure, prosperity true and true. We got to fight on and take full command of our future plan. Who can crack on, we back won't take we out this situation. Fight on, every family, take it seriously. It is there we create and devise the path of our journey. Determination and vision goes together. All your aspirations follow after. Signs reveal it's a shortened span, and time wasting is a crime. We must make the right turn this time and implement what we learn this time. So every man and woman can earn this time. your sister down in your quest to make living easier. To no other you give consideration. If we have to advance, we must come together. If we're going to succeed, we have to unite. Records can be broken, rooms of gold could be won, but the strains of life will intensify unless we get up and fight. We got to fight on, take a rapid flight, work hard day and night. Is the one way to go if you hope for a future bright. Fight on honestly. Fight for you and me, for the sick and the weak and the helpless, they are the needy. Fight on, get up, stop complain. It's a universal pain. From sunrise to sunset every day is a living strain. Fight on, every family, take it seriously. It is there we create and devise the path of our journey. Laziness and crime go together. Rougher times in the jail follow after. Signs reveal it's a shortened span and time wasting is a crime. Our talents we must employ this time. Grudge and selfishness we destroy this time. A future for every boy or girl this time. Faith is to the heart like grapes on a ripe grapevine. To all those who perceive the struggle, the silver lining of the dark cloud that hovers over our freedom and liberty can be seen clearly now. Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo, Paul Bogle, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela. The struggle continues. Haiti, Bosnia, Serbia, Afghanistan, Palestine, and all the other countries torn apart by the wicked imposters of war and crime. Perseverance and strength.
We're all moving on together. So we must plan collectively for a brighter day. No one knows what's in store for the future. True dedication can get us there. Independence is a milestone in our march to prosperity. Now St. Vincent and the Grenadines have a real nationality. We are a nation of many races and have tried hard to integrate. The strength of so many faces shall be the prospects of our fate. So in this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. This is a time of national freedom, so share our love with someone. The 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all the we. Hey, 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 While we take this stand as a nation, let us not forget our past. For this future we praise our heroes who fought slavery to the last. Special honors to Marcus Garvey. His sacrifice gave us all a chance. And all the men who fought in this century to bring us this day of independence. So in this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. Now this is a time of national freedom, so yeah, I love it someone. The 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all of we. Some manipulate the franchise, uphold adult suffrage. There's still hope of a bright tomorrow for all the underprivileged. Let love excel our wishes. Our advancement needs plenty of work. Remember, back is that for the nation that upholds less action and lots of talk. In this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. Now this is a time of national freedom, so share love with someone the 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all of we. My people join hand in hand now. Put your differences aside. Get your hearts and souls together. We got to build this nation with pride. Work in harmony with good leaders. Never elect no one here to rule. Then we can feel at home like good comrades. Our people must not be election tools. So in this moment of history, tell it in every community, our nation is born. Colonialism is gone. Now this is a time of national freedom, so share our love with someone the 27th dawn of October, our nation is born. One history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all of we.
Saint Vincent, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Saint Vincent, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so many beautiful sceneries that make us the gem of the Antilles. Baroli, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Baroli, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so much black fish oil, a good medicine for every boy and girl. Lay you, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Lay you, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. So many men with great professions that make us a leading place in this nation. La, 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 la. La la la, oh, you gave me everything that can make me jump and sing. Mespo, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Mesopotamia, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so many banana trees, the green gold of the West Indies. Lasso Frick, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. So Frick, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You blow up when things are going wrong and remind us of the mighty one. Grenadines, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Beckway, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so much tranquility, quietness, and serenity. Kingston, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Kingston, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You are the head of this nation to make sure nothing go wrong. Macintosh, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Macintosh, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so many great musicians, the best in the Caribbean. La, 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 la. La, la, la. La, la, la. La, 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 la. La, la, la. La, la, la. Saint Vincent, I thank you. 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 All you doctors, all you lawyers, all you teachers, social workers, I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. Shaky, Frankie McIntosh, Michael Findlay, Dr. Cyrus. Saint Vincent, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Saint Vincent. St. Vincent, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so many beautiful sceneries that make us the gem of the Antilles. Baroli, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Baroli, Baroli, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so much black fish oil, a good medicine for every boy and girl. Lay you, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Lay you, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so many men with great professions that make us a leading place in this nation. La, 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 la. La la la, oh, you gave me everything that can make me jump and sing. Mespo, I thank you for all the things.
Everyone, to get the evening's proceedings underway, we'd like to invite Acting Marketing Assistant here at the University of the West Indies Global Campus, Sharon Garraway, to do the opening prayer. This will be followed by the national anthem. Please stand.
Thank you. Psalms 91. He that dwelleth in the secret place. Heavenly Father, we come before you in gratitude for this opportunity to gather as one Caribbean people under the banner of learning, reflection, and unity. We thank you for the life and the legacy of the late Sir Dwight Venner, whose vision, leadership, and unwavering commitment to regional development continue to inspire generations. Lord, we celebrate this independence season. We are reminded that true independence is not only political freedom, but also the pursuit of justice, equality, and shared prosperity. May tonight's lecture rekindle in us a spirit of purpose, one that strengthens our resolve to work together in shaping a Caribbean that is strong, sovereign, and self-reliant. Bless our distinguished speaker, the Honorable Mr. Justice Retired Adrian Saunders, that his words may enlighten minds and stir hearts toward progress and integrity. Bless also the organizers, the UWI Global Campus, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the community, and all who are gathered here, whether in person or in spirit. Grant that this evening's reflection may deepen our understanding of who we are as a people and guide us in the building of bridges of cooperation and trust among our nations. Tonight, Heavenly Father, we pray for clarity of thought, wisdom, unity, and peace across our region, and for the continued strength of our university as a beacon of excellence serving the Caribbean and the wider world. We ask, Holy Spirit, in your precious name, these we ask. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. You may take your seats. Good evening again. My name is Teresa Daniel, just in case you didn't know. Honorable Justice Adrian Saunders, former President, Caribbean Court of Justice, retired, our featured speaker. Honorable Rene Batiste, Speaker, OECS Assembly. Dr. Risa Noel McBarnett, Head of Site, the UWI Global Campus in Vincent and the Grenadines. Members of the Judiciary, members of the Diplomatic Corps, senior public servants and heads of public sector agencies and statutory bodies, the UWI fraternity and other members of academia, specially invited guests, the UWI Guild of Students SVG Chapter, Alumni Association, and tutors, and we specially acknowledge Mr. Dwight Venner, brother of Sir Dwight Venner, members of the media. Good evening again, everybody, and welcome to the annual Sir Dwight Venner Memorial Independence Public Lecture. This lecture series is named in honor of Sir Dwight Venner, a visionary leader and a stalwart of the Caribbean and a son of our Vincentian soil. In 1999, as governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Sir Dwight delivered our inaugural Independence Lecture. At that time, it was titled Eastern Caribbean Economics, Eastern Caribbean Economies, Challenges and Opportunities. At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Risa Noel McBarnett, Head of Site here at the UWI Global Campus, to give you some welcome and opening remarks. Please join me in welcoming her to the podium.
Honorable Justice Retired Adrian Saunders, Honorable Rene Batiste, Speaker of the OECS Assembly, members of the Judiciary, members of the Diplomatic Corps, senior public servants and heads of public sector agencies and statutory bodies, the UWI fraternity and other members of academia, specially invited guests, the UWI Guild of Students, SVG Chapter, Alumni Association and tutors, and of course we acknowledge specially Mr. Dwight Venner, brother of Sir Dwight Venner, members of the media. Good night, everyone. Good night. It is my honor to welcome you to the University of the West Indies Global Campus in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for our annual Sir Dwight Venner Memorial Independence Lecture. Tonight's lecture is a highlight of our national independence celebrations, and we are deeply grateful that you have chosen to spend these precious moments with us. This lecture series is named in honor of Sir Dwight Venner, a visionary leader and a stalwart of the Caribbean, and of course, a son of the soil.
In 1999, as governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Sir Dwight delivered our inaugural independence lecture titled Eastern Caribbean Economies, Challenges and Opportunities. His words still resonate today, reminding us of the importance of facing challenges head-on and seizing the opportunities that lie before us. Sir Dwight's foresight and leadership set a standard of excellence and public engagement that we continue to uphold. Since that seminal address in 1999, our Independence Lecture Series has grown into a hallmark of both national celebration and intellectual engagement. We have been privileged to hear from many illustrious speakers, including Professor Vereen Shepherd on the legacies of enslavement, Professor Hollis Liverpool, also known as Mighty Chartdust, on the power of calypso as social commentary, Professor Richard Robertson on the topic Navigating the Disaster Risk Landscape in an Independent St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Professor Justin Robinson on Financial Markets and Corporate Finance in the OECS since independence, Professor Joel Warrican on the factors in our current Caribbean education systems that work against being truly independent, our very own Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Ralph E. Gonsalves, who explored the modern political economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines since independence, Mr. Herbert Samuel on entrepreneurship, Professor Clive Thomas on St. Vincent and the Grenadines, problems of a small world in a small country, in a big world, Dame Bernice Lake of Anguilla, and of course our historians, Adrian Fraser, Gary Michael Denny, Cleve Scott, Arnold Thomas, who delivered last year's lecture on the topic, The Making of the Vincentian Church, and there have been many other presenters. Public lectures such as this one are indispensable. They extend knowledge beyond the boundaries of our lecture halls and scholarly journals. They invite critical thinking among Vincentians. They foster dialogue on the social, economic, and scientific issues that affect us all, and they strengthen the networks of professionals, students, and engaged members of the public who gather to learn from one another. Tonight, we are especially privileged to host the Honorable Justice Adrian Saunders, a national of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, former president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, whose distinguished career and deep commitment to Caribbean integration, scholarship, and the rule of law make him uniquely suited to address our topic tonight, from independence to interdependence, strengthening Caribbean sovereignty through justice and integration. As we navigate the complex landscape of modern challenges, it becomes increasingly clear that our individual successes are tied to our collective strength. This is the essence of interdependence, the understanding that we are stronger together than we are apart. On behalf of the University of the West Indies Global Campus St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to Justice Saunders for graciously accepting our invitation, as well as participating in 3 interviews this week with SVG TV, the Agency for Public Information, and the National Broadcasting Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, Justice Saunders' willingness to engage with the media underscores his commitment to broadening the reach of tonight's message and to stimulating national discourse in advance of this address. I would also like to express our sincere thanks to Mrs. Jamisha Roberts-Daniel, Program Officer right here at our site. You would have met her on your way in. And Mrs. Sophia Hornbeek, she is the CEO of the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. I would like to thank them for their help with developing the event's main topic and identifying our featured speaker. I know that you, our audience, had many choices for how to spend this evening. Many events, gatherings, and commitments. Yet, you have chosen to be here. For that, on behalf of the UWI Global Campus in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I extend our heartfelt thanks. Your presence underscores our shared conviction that open dialogue, rigorous scholarship, and community engagement are indispensable to the further advancement of our country and our region. I look forward to a thought-provoking presentation by Justice Saunders, followed by a respectful question and answer segment devoid of any defamatory statements. In closing, I take this opportunity to wish all Vincentians happy independence. Thank you for listening, and may God continue to bless our nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. McBannett. And now for some entertainment. This will be from La Gracia Dance Theatre Incorporated. They are a dance troupe from Lomans Hill right here in SVG with over 100 members. They made their grand debut on August 1, 2002 at the National Emancipation Rally hosted by the Ministry of Culture at Heritage Square in Kingstown. Please welcome La Gracia Dance Theatre. Thank you. Show some more appreciation for talented dancers. Thank you. Also like to acknowledge the presence of the Minister of Education, Curtis King, who has just joined us. Next on the program will be some remarks from Maxine Brown, Director of Culture in the Department of Culture. Maxine holds a Master's of Arts degree in Performing Arts Management from the American University, Washington, D.C., and a Bachelor of Arts in Dance with first-class honors from the UWI in collaboration with the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts in Jamaica. Please welcome Maxine.
My heart smiles. We are all moving on together. So we must now plan collectively for a brighter day. No one knows what's in store for the future. True dedication can get us there. Independence is a milestone in our march to prosperity. Words borrowed from Our Nation is Born by Kenneth Vibrating Skates, Aline. Dr. Reese Noel McBarnett, Head of Site, UWI Global Campus, SVG. The Honorable Renee Baptiste, Speaker, OECS Assembly. Honorable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, Almost Fraser, former President of CCJ. Hereafter, I wish to embrace the protocol so beautifully established by the MC and the Head of Site. It is indeed an honor to bring you greetings on behalf of the Honorable Minister, the Honorable Carlos James in the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture. At the Department of Culture in the aforementioned ministry, we continue to work beyond measure through teamwork, unwavering passion and tireless dedication, and harmonious collaboration to uplift culture all year round in sweet St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's our nation's 46th anniversary of independence, and as we celebrate this milestone, let's ponder on this established idiom, from whence we came, and I see Dr. Fraser in the audience. We have come a long way as we work long and hard to do our part in nation building. We have moved from struggles to triumphs, achievements we could all brag about in and of the arts here in SVG. Culture is everything. It is the lifeblood of a vibrant society expressed in the many ways we do our thing, through stories, celebrations, commemorations, entertainment, as we entertain ourselves and imagine the future, a bright future that is. Culture is vital for independence because it not only fosters a strong sense of identity, but it provides a framework for collective mobilization and resistance, and gives communities a unique basis for self-determination and development through our creative expressions that help us to define who we are and help us to see the world through the eyes of others. Thus, by preserving and asserting our cultural identity, we as a people, we as a nation, can maintain our distinctiveness and autonomy, even in the sight and or the face of external influences, which is crucial for achieving and sustaining true independence. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, culture can, in fact, our cultural sector makes every attempt to reflect on the rich heritage of our people, to celebrate and amplify the voices of our communities, the voices, that is, of our communities, to empower the marginalized artists and cultural practitioners, whilst promoting cultural exchanges and develop social talent or local talents. And to help foster a more equitable and vibrant cultural landscape in SVG, culture continues to make a difference year after year. Earlier, I alluded to the steadfast collaborations that the Department of Culture engages in on a daily basis. And though we engage all entities, all, to which we are grateful, I want to at this time, in context, salute the University of the West Indies Global Campus for its commitment to implementing cultural activities in most, if not all, of its programs, and in its initiative to promote SVG's culture, while sharing knowledge and experiences of our rich history, our rich cultural heritage, from the university to the students under your tutelage, whether direct or indirect in SVG. As an institution of higher learning, we must commend you highly for ensuring that culture is alive and well amongst the place of higher learning. Indeed, the scholarly activities of the university, they are pushed, but there's a true integration of the arts and culture, and you must be applauded. At this time, put your hands together for the head of site, Dr. Risa Noel McBarnett, for the hard work she continues to do to engage culture. Dr. Noel, keep up the excellent work. Where the arts thrive, our people are alive, and excellence exists. High praises are in order for you two for your annual Independence Lecture. This year's topic, From Independence to Interdependence, Strengthening Caribbean Sovereignty through Justice and Integration, more integration. It could not have been more timely. And I must hasten to add, thanks to the Garifuna Heritage Foundation and Impact Justice, I was able to officially meet the Honorable Justice Adrian Saunders in Belize a few years back. I even have pictures to prove it. Quite a polite and honorable man. And tonight, I know he's been mentioned, proud visitor too. And tonight we're here to support you and of course the university as we all share in our nation's independence. Culture is, and I repeat, culture is indeed one of the best investments in a nation that a nation can make. Culture is crucial because it shapes our values, our behaviors, and perspectives, all fostering a sense of identity and belonging. Culture creates a universe, in fact, culture creates a unified identity, nurturing the sense of us amongst all Vincentians by promoting shared values, symbols, and a common national story uniting us all. Cultivating a sense of connectedness and cooperation among our people in SVG, whilst encouraging shared identity, purpose, and willingness to work together for mutual benefits in and of culture. As a nation, culture drives development. In fact, a nation's culture can be both the means and end of development, providing a unique foundation for activities that enhance and augment the well-being of our people. I'm almost there. She warned me, a few minutes. Culture also contributes to the sustainable development in multiple ways. No poverty, gender equality, reduced inequalities, peaceful and inclusive societies, among others. The Department of Culture's role during independence is to foster national identity, preserve our heritage, and use culture to build a unified nation. This includes protecting and promoting cultural heritage, supporting the arts. Yes, we support the arts. Providing support both directly and indirectly for artists and cultural organizations to ensure a vibrant cultural life, whilst organizing cultural shows and supporting institutions that promote all areas of the creative and performing arts. All things considered, independence is all about freedom, but we must be cognizant of the fact that freedom comes with responsibilities, such as respecting laws, protecting the environment, helping those in need, and showing respect and appreciation for our rich cultural heritage. I reiterate, culture is a strong part of our lives. It influences all aspects of our lives. In fact, culture acts as a catalyst for creativity, yes, creativity, innovation, and intercultural understanding. By placing culture at the center of our recovery and development strategies, we can build, yes, we can build a more sustainable and prosperous society that values and nourishes its cultural heritage. So, in this moment of history, tell it to every community, our nation is born, colonialism is gone. This is a time of national freedom. So, share a love with someone, the 27th dawn of October. Our nation is born, one history, one ecstasy, one destiny for all are we. Let's work hand in hand to build this land, to uplift the land we so love, the land we call our home, our blessed homeland, sweet, sweet St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's 46 years. Let's celebrate. Let's rally around SVG. Let's defend our country. This is our home. This is indeed our home. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxine, and thank you for the work that you continue to do in the Ministry of Culture as well. So before we get into the meat of the matter, the reason why we're all here, we would like to invite Kingsley Hero Roberts for some entertainment. I suspect it's going to be some pan. Yeah? Here we are. Welcome, Kingsley. Thank you. Well done. He is indeed the hero of pad music here. So show him some more love, man. Come on. You can do better than that. It's independence. Okay, from independence to interdependence, strengthening Caribbean sovereignty through justice and integration. Well, that's the topic that we will be looking at this evening. And to introduce our featured speaker, our guest, we'd like to invite Honorable Rainey Batiste, Speaker of the OECS Parliament, someone who is the managing partner of Batiste and Company. She has been practicing at the bar here for over 40 years and has also been called to the bars of Antigua and St. Kitts and Nevis. She's also a former parliamentarian here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Please welcome Honorable Rainey Batiste to introduce our featured speaker.
Honorable Curtis King, Minister of Education and National Reconciliation. Honorable Justice Retired Adrian Saunders, former President of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Dr. Risha Noel McBarnett, Head of Site of UWI Global Campus, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Other distinguished members of the judiciary, members of the diplomatic corps, senior public servants, and heads of public sector agencies and statutory bodies, the UWI fraternity and other members of academia, special invited guest, Mr. Dwight Venner, brother of Sir Dwight Venner, members of the media, and those who are listening online, good night. This is a very special moment for me to be introducing Justice Adrian Saunders. Very few would know we attended the same primary school, St. Mary's Arcee School. I was in my last year of primary school education before going to high school, and he was in the year behind, and he followed me at Cave Hill campus. I was in 1971, and he got there in 1972. After qualifying as a lawyer from UWI and the Hewwoodin Law School, Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders began his legal career in 1977 as a barrister and solicitor in private practice in home country St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In 1996, he was appointed as a judge of the Trial Division of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, and on May 1st, 2003, he was appointed to the Court of Appeal, and he served as acting Chief Justice between 2004 and 2005. While at the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, Justice Saunders immersed himself in various judicial reform initiatives. These included the introduction of court-connected mediation in the Eastern Caribbean and the development of that court's Judicial Code of Ethics. He also served as chairman of the ECSC's Judicial Education Institute from 2001 to 2004. His work in judicial education has continued with the Commonwealth's Judicial Education Institute, and for several years, he was the course director of that institute's intensive study program. He's currently one of the institute's vice presidents. In 2005, Mr. Justice Saunders was appointed as a judge of the newly established Caribbean Court of Justice. This was for me one of the highlights of my career. I was present to hear him take the oath, and believe you me, it was a moment to shed a tear. He was the founding chair of the Caribbean Association of Judicial Officers and served in that capacity from CAJO's inception in 2009 to 2019. During his tenure as chairman, in collaboration with UN Women, he played a leading role in developing and promoting the adoption of gender-sensitive protocols for judicial officers for various Caribbean judiciaries. Due to his active engagement in advancing judicial integrity, Mr. Justice Saunders was appointed to the advisory board of the Global Judicial Integrity Network by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes, UNODC. He was also a member of the drafting committee for the Nehru Declaration on Judicial Well-Being. Justice Saunders was appointed president of the CCJ in 2018. At the CCJ, Justice Saunders played an active role in promoting the court's strategy agenda. He led the development and implementation of the court's strategy plans between 2012 and 2024. He retired in July 2025 after serving the mandatory 7-year term. Mr. Justice Saunders holds an honorary doctorate from the University of the West Indies. He's also an honorary master of the bench of the Inner Temple. He has written many legal articles. He is a consultant editor of the Caribbean Civil Court Practice and also co-author of Fundamentals of Caribbean Constitutional Law. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to invite Justice Saunders to address us on the topic this evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Batiste, and please allow me to adopt the protocol list, which has been very fully and amply laid out by speakers before me. But I want to also mention a few persons who were not included in that list. Dr. Fraser, Adrian Fraser, who inculcated in me a love of history, taught me at the grammar school. Joe Thomas, who goes back a long way with me, a former Speaker of the House of Assembly, and Mr. and Mrs. Stephen Huggins, who generously host me anytime I'm in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There are so many other persons here whose lives who have touched me by their lives. But, you know, we can't go on and on and on. But I'm extremely grateful to the Global Campus of the University of West Indies for inviting me to deliver this lecture. In the first place, it has offered me a good reason to return to St. Vincent, to be back here. You know, despite sporadic visits back home from time to time, effectively I left this country in 1996 to join, as you heard, first the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, and then since 2005, I have resided in Trinidad and Tobago. Given my closeness to my Trinidadian grandson, the likelihood is that I will spend most of my retirement in Trinidad. And so opportunities like these offer me the occasion to return to my roots and to see so many of you who I know so well. But most of all, this opportunity has allowed me to speak to a Vincentian audience on a subject that I consider to be of great importance and one that is very, very dear to my heart. I am particularly proud and pleased to be giving this lecture in honor of the late Sir Dwight Venner. Although 8 years my senior, Dwight was a friend and colleague, and our paths crossed often when I was a judge with the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. We collaborated then on a few regional matters, and I was really shocked and saddened to learn of his passing about a year after he retired as governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. As you know, his tenure as governor lasted a record 26 years. I don't know if there's anyone else in the world who has been head of a central bank for that length of time. But during that time, he played a major role in maintaining the Eastern Caribbean dollar stability and in overseeing the expansion of the financial sector in the OECS, and also in promoting deeper regional integration, not just among the OECS, but throughout the countries of CARICOM. So the topic of this evening's lecture would have been as close and as dear to his heart as it is to mine, because each of us spent much of our life's work devoted to strengthening Caribbean sovereignty, self-determination, and resilience. Before launching into the meat of tonight's topic about independence, I would like us first to pause a little to recall that there was a time when the inhabitants of St. Vincent and the Grenadines were free and independent, when they weren't colonized. They governed themselves, and they went about their livelihood in ways that were not limited by the desires or the might or the economic agenda of an overseas power, but rather their aspirations were constrained only by the forces of nature and by their technological and economic limitations. And that freedom, that independence, came to a halt towards the end of the 18th century. And since then, Vincentians have been in an uphill battle to reclaim such of our independence as it is reasonably possible to regain. So I want to trace a little bit about how that initial independence was lost and the steps that have been taken to try to reclaim it. And I want to do so by looking very quickly at some defining years and events. As I understand it, and Dr. Fraser will correct me, our mainland was originally called either Euromain or Yulu or Hyrule, as the case may be. Its current name was likely given in honor of the patron saint of Lisbon, a certain Vincent of Saragossa. And Vincent's feast day is celebrated by Roman Catholics in Portugal on the 22nd of January each year. The likelihood, I suppose, is that the Portuguese Columbus would have sighted the island and renamed it in honor of Saint Vincent, perhaps on the 22nd of January 1500, when he was on his third voyage. Although when I was in school, I used to teach that it was in 1498. At any rate, between the start of the 16th century and the year 1763, both the French and the English tried to impose themselves on our country, which was then inhabited by the Kalinago and by the Garifuna. During this period, everywhere else in the Caribbean, the name of the game was sugar and slavery. And the European powers were therefore eager to get in on that act in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as well. After all, our soil is some of the most fertile in the region, thanks to our La Soufrière volcano. But the Garifuna would not allow the Europeans to settle here. They skillfully played the French off against the English and vice versa. And in the meantime, they fought and resisted with all their might to retain their independence, to determine themselves, their own destiny, to maintain their way of life free from foreign domination. And so neither of these two mighty European nations, France and England, who were always fighting wars against each other, neither of them could have their settlers gain a firm foothold in St. Vincent. Then in 1763, at the end of a 7-year war that they fought among each other, which France lost royally, France agreed to give up. They pretended to give up. And they signed a treaty in which, among other possessions in the Caribbean and North America, they purported to cede St. Vincent to England. Now, the idea that you could give away what you never owned is, of course, laughable. But that's what the French did. The next defining year I have in mind that is relevant is the year 1796. Now, between 1763, when France claimed to give away the country to England, and 1796, Fortified by their treaty with France, England tried really hard to subjugate the Garifuna, to colonize the island, and to establish sugar plantations. But again, the Garifuna, with the sly assistance from the French, used to chase away any British settlers. But the British, conceiving that the country was theirs, after all it had been given to them by France, sent in more and more armed troops. And in 1796, superior arms, superior military intelligence, and better equipped soldiers won the day. In March of 1796, our beloved national hero, Paramount Chief Chatoyer, was killed defending our homeland against the British. There was a time when a story was told that Chatoyer died when he challenged the British Major Leith to a sword fight and lost. But our own Vincentian historians, Dr. Adrian Fraser and Dr. Kirby, say that what really happened on that fateful night in March 1796 was an ambush. An English battalion marched in the dead of night up to Dorsetshire Hill, where they ambushed Chatoyer and his army who were camped there, and in the battle that ensued, Chatoyer was killed. And with his death, the Garifuna resistance was put down. Thousands of them were rounded up, taken first to Baliso, where many of them perished, and then to Central America. And from that day in 1796, this country lost its independence to Britain. And right down to today, almost 230 years later, notwithstanding what happened on the 27th of October 1979, we are still struggling to free ourselves completely from all of the shackles, economic, social, legal, mental, and other kinds that were imposed on us. Astonishingly, the exiled Garifuna have never forgotten this land, even after hundreds of years have passed. Their descendants revere Chatoyer, perhaps even more than we do. They still recognize this country as the homeland from which they were unjustly exiled. They still sing songs and tell stories about Chatoyer, about life in St. Vincent before 1796. And amazingly, they do so in the same language that Chatoyer used to speak. In 2007, a group of us from the CCJ went to Belize. And we went in two tranches, two batches. I was in the second batch, because Abastide president said, well, you can't always travel together, suppose there's an accident. So I was in the second batch. When the first batch got to the hotel, there was a Garifuna girl, young lady, who was the receptionist. And somehow she got to hear or overheard that one of the judges was a Vincentian. The young lady went berserk. Where is he? I want to see him. Who? You? Are you? They said, well, no, he's not here. He's coming in tomorrow. She said, tomorrow's my day off, but I'm coming back here. And so said, so done. The lady hugged me up. She kissed me, asked me about St. Vincent, and it just blew me away. But that is how the Garifuna are. After their defeat in 1796, Britain lost no time fortifying the country to safeguard their prized possession, the gem of the Antilles, no doubt. They completed the erection of Fort Charlotte, that we all know. But they were so concerned about local resistance that many of the guns at the fort were not pointed out to sea to ward off French or Spanish or Dutch incursions, but they were aimed inland. And in no time, St. Vincent and the Grenadines joined other Caribbean islands in being transformed into a slave society. Sugarcane plantations were established, and African slaves enslaved, African persons enslaved were made to work them. The Garifuna culture lives on mostly in the names of places like Bayabu and Leyu and Rawaku, and in our love of farine and yam. The French culture remains in names like Barley and Connery and Billet. But after 1796, the inhabitants of the island and those brought here from Africa and other places like India and Madeira were made to speak English. English law and English governance systems were imposed, and our towns and villages were given English names like Georgetown and Kingstown and Edinburgh. And if there were legal disputes that couldn't be settled by the local courts, petitions could be sent to England for His Majesty's Privy Council to decide finally. Slavery was abolished in 1834, with economic and political power remaining firmly in the hands of the British and the planter class. And in the middle of the 20th century, the demands of the people were heeded for the right to vote without property qualifications. In 1951, all Vincentians over the age of 21 won the right to vote for representatives to sit in the Legislative Assembly, in the Colonial Legislative Assembly. But there began a system that allowed us to produce our own political leaders, persons like George Charles and Ebenezer Joshua and his wife Ivy Joshua and Robert Milton Cato, under whose leadership our country became first an associated state with Britain in 1969, and then in October 1979, we achieved political independence from Britain with the proud name of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And since 1979, we have been struggling along for these last 46 years to build on our sovereignty and to consolidate our independence. Now, when we speak of sovereignty and independence, we must be realistic. This country, like those of the other OECS islands, is not just small, you know, it's tiny. You look at a map and you could barely see St. Vincent on it. Even by CARICOM standards, it's a tiny country. This country, including the Grenadines, can easily fit into an island in one of Guyana's rivers. So we're not just tiny, but we're poor, we're lacking in natural resources, but with our anthem and our flag and our constitution and our government and our opposition, our parliament, our national pride, we take our place in that august body of the United Nations as one of the nations of the world. And remarkably, in 2020 and 2021, this country even held a seat on the Security Council of the United Nations. But the sobering fact remains, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, like other OECS states, does not and cannot on its own provide for itself several of the important attributes of statehood. To function fully and effectively as a state, we must pool our resources and our sovereignty with neighboring states. We must engage in integration initiatives, policy harmonization, and shared governance in order to be a state. So when you hear some of our OECS leaders sometimes angrily venting their frustrations publicly with and at each other, bear in mind that at the end of the day, our respective countries are locked in an inescapable embrace because we absolutely need each other to survive at even a basic level. A prime vehicle that supports and fosters that embrace is, of course, the OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. It is through the OECS that the smaller states, we share the same central bank, the same bank that Sir Dwight Venner was governor of. We share the same currency, the well-respected Eastern Caribbean dollar. The ECCB manages the money supply and the credit conditions of our respective countries in order to achieve our respective broad economic goals. And St. Vincent and Grenadines, like other states, would be severely challenged to do this on our own. Can you imagine just having a St. Vincent and Grenadines dollar? We alone have this dollar. how often that dollar would have to be perhaps devalued. So we have the OECS and we have an Eastern Caribbean dollar. Similarly, we do not have our own Supreme Court structure. We don't have our own Chief Justice. We don't have our own judges, our own Court of Appeal. Instead, in common with Grenada and St. Lucia, Dominica and Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, and 3 British overseas territories, Tortola, Montserrat, and Anguilla, we share these important institutions and offices. Actually, that court, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, which I had the honor to be part of for 9 years and to lead for close to a year, is like no other court in the world that I know of. Internationally, there are several examples of independent states that share a common court of appeal or a common apex court, as the Privy Council did for many countries, many of its colonies. But I don't know of any other place in the world where several independent states share in common an entire court structure from the ground up. And all of this is an indicator of the interdependence that is necessary in order for us to maintain our independence. So political independence presents us, therefore, with severe challenges, but it also offers us possibilities for self-advancement if we work with our regional neighbors. Independence has meant that we now take for granted that it is our own government, which we elect ourselves, our own parliament, and not the Foreign Office of the United Kingdom, or not Westminster, that must make our laws or must administer the annual budget of billions of our taxpayers' dollars. We rightly expect that it is the representatives we vote into Parliament who will make laws to keep us safe and to propel our society forward. No right-thinking person in St. Vincent and the Grenadines today yearns for a return to Crown Colony government, where all these decisions used to be made in London without our consent, and often at variance with our own wishes, expectations, and aspirations. Today we take for granted that we must make our own laws and that we should govern ourselves, even if we join with other states in that governance. So far as independence is concerned, among the OECS countries, and this is a fact that is not sufficiently recognized, Dominica, the Commonwealth of Dominica, has always led and continues to lead the way. That country is the only Anglophone Caribbean state that, upon attaining its independence, simultaneously abolished the monarchical form of government and chose to become a republic with its own local elected head of state. Jamaica didn't do it. Indeed, up to today, King Charles III is the head of state of Jamaica. Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and Barbados, although they are currently republics, when they achieved their political independence in 1962 and 1966, respectively, they all retained the monarchy. Not so Dominica. And my guess is that no Dominican now wishes to abandon their own elected head of state, elected by their parliament, and return to a contrived situation such as we have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where our head of state is King Charles III. Did the heavens collapse in Dominica in 1978 when they did so? No. Did Dominica suffer any adverse consequences on this account? Of course not. Dominica also led the way among OECS countries in 2015 when they stopped sending their final appeals to the British Privy Council, and they chose instead to send those appeals to the Caribbean Court of Justice. So I think we should all salute the government and people of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Independence requires us, small states, to take bold decisions like these, to think and act creatively, to be self-reliant, to invest in ourselves, to move away from colonial structures, and to wield a foreign policy that promotes self-determination and that yields the greatest possible advantages for us. In particular, as I previously stated, we absolutely must make common cause with our neighbors in the Caribbean region so that we can suitably fashion or refashion, as the case may be, appropriate institutions for our own common good. It is only in this way that we can discharge effectively all the responsibilities of independence. When I went to secondary school here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines between 65 and 72, as many of you also did at varying times in that era, we sat what was then called ordinary level and advanced level GC exams. These exams were set and marked in England. The exam papers were sent off to Cambridge or to London, along with thousands of pounds sterling each year. But today, thanks to a regional agreement, we have the Caribbean Examinations Council that offers CXC and CAPE. And our school children are just as well educated as they were in my time. Indeed, they are perhaps better educated because the syllabus and the questions that are set are more relevant to the Caribbean experience than in my time. And the persons marking them are all Caribbean people steeped in Caribbean culture. And of course, the examination fees remain in the Caribbean. Similarly, before 1975, no lawyers were trained in the Caribbean, but thanks to the University of West Indies, we have been graduating doctors, lawyers, engineers, accountants, dentists, economists, you name it. And those professionals are just as good as those who were trained in the United Kingdom or elsewhere. Indeed, as you would see on one of the banners somewhere on the premises, the University of the West Indies is actually ranked among the top 5% universities in the world. So all of these mechanisms, institutions, serve to help consolidate our independence. They help us small states to do, in common with other regional states, what each of us by ourselves cannot accomplish alone. A major step forward in advancing our independence came when the Caribbean community, CARICOM, established the Caribbean Court of Justice in 2005. The CCJ is like two courts in one. It is an economic treaty court, like the European Court of Justice is for the states of Europe. And it is also a final court of appeal, just like the US Supreme Court or like the British Privy Council. Let's first speak about the CARICOM treaty aspect of the CCJ. As you all know, CARICOM countries have made a treaty, have signed a treaty, the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. And as part of this treaty, CARICOM leaders agreed to establish a CARICOM single market and economy to encourage the free movement of goods, services, labor, and capital, and the right of establishment. The CCJ is the court one can turn to when any CARICOM country violates that pact, violates that agreement. The court resolves disputes between or among CARICOM states or individuals of one state and a CARICOM state, on the other hand, that arise under the treaty. So when a state or an individual feels unfairly disadvantaged because a sister state is not playing by the CARICOM rules and honoring its obligations, complaint can be made to the CCJ, and the CCJ is authorized to provide appropriate redress. In this way, the court promotes peace, justice, and harmony among CARICOM states. It ensures a level playing field. And there have been several cases at the court that illustrate this reality. For example, the court has heard cases of Trinidadian companies that complained in one case that Ghana was wrongfully importing cement from outside the region when it said it should have been purchasing that cement from Trinidad. And the court gave a judgment and said, Ghana, you can't do that. That's against the rules. In another case, a Trinidadian company complained that Suriname was importing flour from the Netherlands when it should have been buying that flour from a Trinidad company. In each case, the CCJ gave judgment for the company that complained. In the well-known case of Shanique Myrie, a young Jamaican lady attempted to visit another CARICOM country for a short holiday. She wasn't welcomed at the airport, as a CARICOM citizen should be. Overzealous border officials, they placed her in a cell and deported her the next morning. They actually dealt with her in a very inhumane manner. But she complained to the CCJ, and the CCJ denounced the mistreatment and awarded her significant monetary damages, which were paid by the government of the country she was attempting to visit. So in these examples, you see the CCJ playing a dynamic role, touching the lives of the people of the region, safeguarding the jobs of workers in the manufacturing sector in Trinidad, maintaining the integrity of the single market and economy, protecting the rights of ordinary CARICOM citizens, and generally in upholding the CARICOM Treaty and fostering good relations among countries in the region. I have not heard any government or individual grumble that the CCJ judges are biased or not equipped to resolve the disputes that arise under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, or that they are incompetent. And every CARICOM state has accepted the court's judgments that have been given in that sphere, in fact, in both spheres. So much so that on one occasion, the CARICOM leaders themselves asked the court for advice on how to interpret a decision they had made among themselves, and the court gave an advisory opinion. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is also part of the CSME, and we have heard at least one case involving Vincentian citizens. This was a case involving the Clico debacle, in which thousands of persons across the Caribbean lost monies they had invested. The policyholders of British American, including several from this country, complained to the CCJ that it was not in keeping with the treaty that Trinidad and Tobago bailed out those policyholders who had invested in the Trinidadian Clico companies and did not similarly bail out policyholders who invested in non-Trinidadian Clico companies. And the court found that based on the treaty, there was no obligation on Trinidad and Tobago to bail out everybody. I know this was a bitter pill for those Vincentians who lost money in the Clico meltdown, but the court, while sympathetic to the plight of all the British American policyholders, could find no obligation in the treaty on Trinidad and Tobago to bail out the whole world who lost money in these investments. The region's business community have the most to gain from their governments embracing more fully, more wholeheartedly, the goals of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. In particular, it is the business community that will benefit most from freedom of movement, freedom to move capital, freedom to move goods, and the right to establish business in each country of CARICOM. And so a very quiet trend has been steadily developing in the region in light of the work of the CCJ. Having seen for themselves the independence, the competence, the efficiency, and the effectiveness of the court in tackling these regional cross-border economic issues, Caribbean business leaders are now pushing their governments to deepen and broaden the CSME regime that has been proceeding at too slow a pace in the past. The second role of the CCJ is triggered when a state changes its constitution to have the CCJ hear their final appeals in civil, criminal, and constitutional cases. In this regard, the CCJ replaces the Privy Council, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. The court that was the highest appeal court since the times of Châteauguay. And I want to spend a little time speaking to this matter because it has directly to do with furthering the process of decolonization. As long as we continue to send our appeals to His Majesty's Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, we have not yet completed the task that Châteauguay and his Garifuna warriors fought so ardently to preserve. Delinking from the Privy Council is not just a matter of form, or of emotion, or ideology. It is a matter that has substantial practical consequences for the rule of law, for access to justice, and for our appreciation of what it means to be truly independent. I honestly thought that as long as the CCJ demonstrated that it was well-functioning, well-staffed, well-resourced, and independent from political control, the governments and peoples of the entire Caribbean would quickly and fully leave the Privy Council in droves to embrace it. Over the last 20 years, 2 decades, the CCJ has proven again and again that it has all those qualities. But to date, only 5 countries, Barbados, Guyana, Belize, Dominica, and St. Lucia, currently send their appeals to the CCJ. Why is it important to replace the Privy Council? I want to answer that question this way. Broadly speaking, the art of judging includes 2 important and overarching constructs. A judge, and here I speak of any judge, a judge at the Queen's Show, a judge at Panorama, a judge in court, a judge at a beauty show. A judge must be able simultaneously to see from near and judge from far. In other words, let's deal first with seeing from near. To be most effective, the judge should be at the front and center of the contest or dispute. And you'll notice whether it is at a beauty show or panorama or in court, that is where the judge sits, front and center. The judge has to be able to discern what is going on from close up. For a judge, especially a judge having to decide certain kinds of cases, seeing from near not only implies a physical proximity, but it also implies cultural and social nearness. The judge should have knowledge of and be immersed in the culture of the people whose disputes the judge is trying. The judge must, so to speak, be on the same page with the persons who are in dispute before the judge. The judge must understand and appreciate their customs and aspirations, and even as basic as their mode of expressing themselves. Ideally, and this is something that I consider to be very important and is often overlooked, the judge should also personally experience for herself the consequences of the decisions the judge makes. Because if you are in Mars making judgments for people on earth that don't affect you in any way, you could decide anything. It doesn't affect you. It is a form of accountability that you experience the consequences of the decisions you make. So that is judging from near. It is also true that, as I said, the judge must simultaneously judge from far. What I mean by that is that the judge must be detached. The judge should be able to stand back and not get so personally drawn in so that the judge is improperly influenced by his or her proximity to the dispute. The judge must therefore make every effort to overcome any biases or prejudice that might make the judge lean for or against any party to the dispute. What we really mean by saying that you must judge from far is that the judge must be impartial, objective. Now, it is true that distance, physical distance, from the site of the dispute appears to lend itself to objectivity. And that is what some people say they like about the Privy Council. They're all the way across the Atlantic in the United Kingdom. The truth is, however, that objectivity is a mindset. It's not a physical construct. And any judge worth her salt is easily able to demonstrate objectivity and impartiality. These are traits that you learn over your experience as a judge. Indeed, it is possible to be physically distant but still be lacking in objectivity. But it is not possible to be physically distant and still be able to see from near. Another way of understanding what I'm saying is to use the analogy of a forest and the individual trees that make up the forest. The judges of a final court must be able to have a bird's eye view of the forest. They must be able to see the forest. They must have the ability to understand the larger social and economic system and the context, the purpose, the culture of the people who are in dispute. When we talk about seeing the forest here, we mean that the judge must be able to see and understand the big picture, the overall structure and direction of the society. Understanding the whole forest ensures that your decision-making in one area does not undermine the balance elsewhere. If you can't and don't see and appreciate the forest, the risk is that you get lost among the trees, among the details, because you miss how the various parts of the society connect and interact and intersect with each other. Judges from another civilization are not ideally placed to see and understand our Caribbean forests. The Privy Council judges sometimes, though not always, they recognize this basic fact, what I've just said. And as a result, they make it plain in some of their judgments that for the same reasons I've just given, they must defer to the local courts. I tell you about a case called Pandy and Gordon. This is a case where Mr. Gordon, Ken Gordon, who at one time was very much involved in the media, I think he used to own the Express, I'm not sure. And he was also involved in West Indies cricket. Mr. Pandey, then the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, called him a pseudo-racist. And Mr. Gordon did not take kindly to that. So he sued him for slander, for defamation. And the trial court said, yep, you call the man a pseudo-racist, that's a serious thing. I'm finding you liable, and I'm awarding you, I can't remember the figures now, but a ton of money, something like $500,000 or something like that. Mr. Pandey appealed. He said to the Court of Appeal, pseudo-racist is not a slanderous term. That's pecan. And in any event, if you didn't think it was pecan, $500,000 is way too much for Mr. Gordon. The Court of Appeal said, no, pseudo-racist, to call the man a pseudo-racist, that really defames the man. But we will lower the damages to maybe about $250,000. Mr. Pandey appealed to the Privy Council. And their lordship said, well, the same two grounds of appeal. On the issue of whether the words were defamatory, their lordship said, well, you know, we're not from the Caribbean. The judges in the Caribbean are best able to determine what words have a sting, a defamatory sting, and what words do not. And so you can't succeed on that ground. We will defer to the decision of the two lower courts. Mr. Pandey said, well, what about the money? The money is too much. He said, well, the money is a funny thing, you know. The value of money is really best understood by the people in the society who are using that money and who understood the relationship between goods and services and so on. So you can't succeed on that ground. We will defer to the local court. Effectively, the man who had a right of appeal to a third tier did not have did not have an appeal because the judges of the third tier accepted that they were not in a good position to determine the appeal. So that is one of the cases where the Privy Council itself said to the litigant, well, we can't see the forest, we up here in England, we see in our own forest up here, but the one in the Caribbean, we're not seeing that. And therefore, we cannot overturn the judgments of the courts in the Caribbean who are seeing that forest down there. Unsurprisingly, by and large, the decision-making of the judges of the Privy Council and of the Caribbean Court of Justice has been pretty much in sync with each other. We have sometimes cited their cases and relied on their cases in support of our decision-making, and they have sometimes cited ours and relied on ours in support of their decision-making. They are as technically capable and competent as the CCJ judges are. But there's one important area where there has been divergence, very serious divergence in our respective decision-making. And this area lies in public law cases. That is, cases where we have to interpret and apply our Caribbean constitutions. In cases such as these, it is often essential that one has a proper understanding of the forest, because public law cases have implications not just for two litigants like Pandy and Gordon or two persons who have a contractual dispute. These cases have implications for the whole of society. It seems to me that the roots of the divergence reside in a difference of appreciation about what is the true meaning of Caribbean independence as far as Caribbean people are concerned. When Caribbean states proclaimed their independence from Britain, respectively in the 60s, some in the 70s like us, some in the 80s like St. Kitts and Nevis, the grant of independence symbolized for us a break at this juncture, the chance of a new beginning that would permit us to proceed to genuine self-determination. Independence, 27th October 1979 for us, was the end of one road and the beginning of a new road. An opportunity to have control over our own destiny, and in particular, given our painful, dark, fractured past, to enjoy the fundamental rights that were laid out in our new independence constitution. Caribbean independence was supposed to usher in a new order. It's a mistake to think that this new order perfectly mirrors the old order, the United Kingdom's Westminster system. To take just one example, unlike the case in the United Kingdom, our parliament is not sovereign, is not supreme. Instead, sovereignty in our constitutions is dispersed among three co-equal branches. And the judicial branch is entrusted with, among other things, the important role of reviewing acts of parliament and acts of the executive to ensure conformity with the Constitution. In England, the UK Parliament passes a law. The courts can't say that law, we find that law unconstitutional, we're striking it down. They can't say that because the UK Parliament is supreme. In the Caribbean, because of our constitutional structure, courts can say that law does not comply with the Constitution. That law is contrary to the fundamental rights in the Constitution, and therefore we are annulling that law, or we are modifying it so that it can conform to the Constitution. So that is one big difference. But from the earliest years of independence, it was apparent that the British judges did not share the idea that our independence constitutions signaled or should be treated as the start of a new order. They considered our independence journey to be, well, it's just a seamless continuation of the old regime, albeit with a new flag and without Britain's ultimate political and administrative oversight. As far as they were concerned, all the rights laid down in our constitutions represented nothing more than what was already enjoyed under colonial rule, notwithstanding even the textual wording, the way in which the rights were set out in the Constitution. And so they decided a lot of cases by taking the view that if there was any legal or constitutional uncertainty about the extent to which Caribbean people should enjoy rights laid out in their constitution, then the issue could and should be determined by reference to how those rights were enjoyed under the old colonial order. It didn't matter what the Constitution actually stated in black and white. The Privy Council insisted that we must start with the old order in order to find the true meaning of the new. In the early years, therefore, the British judges disregarded what was plainly stated in the constitutional text and instead gave to it a more restricted meaning that was consistent with what prevailed during colonial times. But as I said, certainly my understanding of what independence means starts with the overarching ideals that prompted the drive for self-determination and which are generally contained in the preambles to the various constitutions. So I start with the preamble and have regard to the prioritization and significance of our fundamental rights, and from there I work downwards and backwards. This fundamental difference of approach in the understanding of how to treat Caribbean political independence and how to construe Caribbean constitutions perhaps explains how and why the two courts have expressed varying views on how should courts treat old colonial laws that are inconsistent with the fundamental rights laid out in our independence constitutions. The Privy Council takes the view that such laws must remain in place until and unless the local parliament alters them. The CCJ says no. The fundamental rights of Caribbean people are sacrosanct, and old colonial laws must give way to those rights or else must be modified by the courts so that they conform with our fundamental rights. To await patiently Parliament's intervention on issues, some of which are very divisive, some of which are highly emotive, might be to wait indefinitely. And in the meantime, people's rights, especially the rights of vulnerable persons, marginalized persons, minorities, in the meantime, those rights are allowed to be trampled upon by old colonial laws. And so that is the area in which we have that divergence of jurisprudence between the CCJ and the Privy Council. On a practical but no less important level, the failure by certain Caribbean countries, like this country, to accede to the appellate jurisdiction of the CCJ, it denies justice to persons who cannot afford the difficulty and expense of taking a case to the Privy Council. And the statistics tell the story. My successor, Justice Anderson, just a few weeks ago, he said this, quote, "The existence of the CCJ has significantly increased the access by Caribbean citizens to final appellate justice. For example, there were 19 appeals from Barbados to the Privy Council in the 20 years immediately before Barbados joined the CCJ in 2005. In the 20 years since then, there have been 105 appeals from Barbados to the CCJ, an increase of over 450%. In the case of Belize, there were 33 appeals to the Privy Council in the 15 years before accession to the CCJ's appellate jurisdiction in 2010. Since then, 15 years, there have been 56 appeals from Belize to the CCG, an increase of over 69%. For Dominica, the numbers were 3 to the Privy Council in the 10 years before joining the appellate jurisdiction in 2015, and 10 in the 10 years since then, an increase of 233%. St. Lucia sent 1 appeal to the Privy Council in the 2 years immediately before joining the CCJ in 2023, and sent 5 to the CCJ in the 2 years since joining, an increase of 400%. The average increase in appeals has been 288%, unquote. Contrast that with what is happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In the last 10 years, no appeal has been brought by a Vincentian to the Privy Council. I repeat, over the last 10 years, no appeal has been brought by anyone in this country to our highest court of appeal. This is a shocking statistic. What explains this? Is it that the decisions of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Court of Appeal, the court from which appeals to the Privy Council are brought, are so perfectly satisfactory to unsuccessful litigants that none of them desires to challenge the results? No, I agree. That Court of Appeal is a fine court. I used to preside over it at one time. But I rather suspect that is not the reason. The reason is because of the expense and difficulty that a litigant must incur to bring a case before the London court. There are enormous filing fees to be paid, and those fees are way in excess of the fees Lucians and Dominicans, our OECS partners, pay to access the CCJ. And then apart from the exorbitant filing fees, there are other expenses to be borne, sometimes including fees that must be paid to English solicitors. The consequence of all of this is that Vincentians' appeals to a final court are being artificially choked off. Important points of law do not get the benefit of the definitive views of the judges of an apex court. And that is extremely unhealthy for the advancement of the rule of law in a country, because invariably the apex court deals with the most knotty legal issues a country experiences. The refusal to subscribe to the appellate jurisdiction of the CCJ is no different than someone today wanting our homeland to return to Crown Colony status, or wanting to write O-levels and A-levels instead of CXC and CAPE. Chatoyer put his life on the line for this country. On March the 14th, we are proud to declare him our national hero and to celebrate him. What would he think of his countrymen and women declaring him to be their national hero, but simultaneously preferring the court of his colonizer over a Caribbean court, which one of his countrymen recently led for 7 years? It's a deep embarrassment. A very deep embarrassment that the Caribbean is the last region of Britain's former empire that still sends their appeals to London. I have said it publicly again and again. The best final court for the United Kingdom is the UK Supreme Court. The best final court for the USA, notwithstanding the kinds of decisions that that court is making. But the best court for them is the US Supreme Court. And the best court for the Caribbean is the Caribbean Court of Justice. The CCJ has been functioning for over 20 years, and the government and peoples of those countries that send their final appeals to it are satisfied with it and with its decision-making. If there had been a groundswell of dissatisfaction about the quality of the court's judgments or about its independence, the whole region would have heard it by now, over and over, because Caribbean people exact harsh judgment on their own. On the contrary, when a former Barbados Prime Minister publicly made uncomplimentary statements about the court shortly after we had given a decision against his government's chief electoral officer, he was roundly criticized in the Barbados media by scores and scores of ordinary Barbadians. It had never occurred to me until then that the court was so well appreciated in that country. And guess what? In the elections that followed very shortly after, by sheer coincidence, he lost every seat. Accession to the CCJ's appellate jurisdiction is a vital part and parcel of securing our independence. And in our quest for full decolonization, we have a responsibility to interrogate all inherited colonial structures and to examine the extent to which these structures serve our needs, and then to modify or replace them altogether as we consider appropriate and necessary. The only thing that stands in our way in doing this is our own indifference, our own inertia. And yes, in some cases, a misguided attitude some of us still have, none of us in this room, that what is of the region is never good enough to replace that which colonialism bequeaths to us. I often quote the great Caribbean writer from Barbados, the late George Lamy. And he said, you know, British colonialism, it was not a physical cruelty. Indeed, the colonial experience of my generation was almost wholly without violence. No torture, no concentration camp, no mysterious disappearance of hostile natives, no army encamped with orders to kill. The Caribbean endured a different kind of subjugation. It was the terror of the mind, a daily exercise in self-mutilation that was the breeding ground for every uncertainty of self. The breeding ground for every uncertainty of self. There are other important colonial legacies that are crying out for full decolonization. For example, our host this evening, the University of West Indies, is currently discussing the issue of its governance charter, its governance instrument, a royal charter. This is not just an emotional or symbolic issue. When your governing instrument is a royal charter, it usually means that you have no agency or control over it. But life is dynamic, and over time it would require amendments. If you want to amend it, you have to go and petition King Charles, please, can you amend this royal charter in this way or that way? And he doesn't have any requirement to take you on. So this is something that we need to look at, and the university is looking at it. Similarly, the governing instrument for the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. It's a 1967 UK statutory instrument. Among other things, that instrument declares that the retirement age for judges is 62. Now, in 1967-62 was a good retirement age for judges. Life expectancy was much shorter than it is now. But today, at age 62, good judges are in their prime. They have accumulated and added to their knowledge and wisdom a wealth of life experience, that their best work surely lies ahead of them. My best judgments were written after I was 62. But OECS states are virtually powerless to adjust that anachronism because the relevant instrument is a United Kingdom statutory instrument. The point is that those two examples, just as in CXC, the only way to deal with this is through common action among states, collective action among the states. And in this regard, I offer my warmest congratulations to the governments of Barbados, Belize, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who have agreed to establish enhanced cooperation to deepen free movement of persons among their peoples. These countries are saying that the CARICOM processes are not moving swiftly enough, or are still too cumbersome, or don't yet go far enough. They wish to accelerate some of the essential goals of CARICOM. As I understand it, I've only read the news, CARICOM nationals from these 4 states either now have or will soon have the right to live, work, and retire indefinitely in any of these countries without requiring a work permit or CARICOM skill certificate. This is a major step in the right direction in my view, and I'm sure that it is warmly welcomed by, in particular, the region's business community. And I stress the business community not because I don't have regard for ordinary men and women, but because the CSME regime is specifically targeted at promoting business in the region so that we can supplant foreign domination, foreign control with our own processes. I haven't read the governing documents, the governing instruments. I only saw what was reported in the press. And so it will be interesting to discover how the rights that are being granted and how the obligations that are being voluntarily undertaken, how they're precisely framed and what enforcement mechanisms exist. But that is not to throw cold water on the initiative. I wholeheartedly support it. I want to end on this sobering note. The Second World War lasted 6 years. At the start of that war in 1939, the world's population was about 2.3 billion people. About 1/3 of that 2.3 billion people were shackled by colonial rule. The war claimed the lives of approximately 80 million persons, including over 20 million Soviet citizens and over 15 million Chinese. When it was all over, humanity was aghast at the level of death and destruction, which included the dropping of 2 atomic bombs on Japan. In the wake of all of this, the world resolved to build a new, recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Gonsalves. In the wake of all this, the world resolved to build a new international order, one devoted to promoting peace and to freeing all peoples from colonial domination. That new order required all nations, especially large and powerful nations, to conduct their affairs according to certain rules. And so international institutions like the United Nations were established to help to promote peace and harmony in the world. And conventions were drawn up to require states with colonies to allow those peoples in those colonies to determine their own destiny. And it was these conditions that created the space for tiny islands like ours to achieve our political independence. Today, 80 years on, sadly, at a time when humanity is confronted with existential threats from climate change, from the need to control the awesome potential of artificial intelligence that could go in negative ways, that international order that allowed us to become independent is not being built upon and enhanced. It is being ignored and even dismantled. And the world is now becoming a very dangerous place for small states. These are therefore times when we in the region absolutely need, as the topic of tonight's lecture says, to strengthen Caribbean sovereignty and unity through justice and integration. I thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your thought-provoking presentation. I am pretty sure that the questions are going to be fast and furious. At this point, we'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Prime Minister. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay. The exhibition. Okay, great. So what's happening now is that we are opening the floor for questions, comments. There's a microphone here. You'll come to the microphone. I see we have Luke Brown.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
And thank you for that presentation. I just wanted to ask a question or two, I think arising out of the topic for tonight and also the presentation. First of all, is there such a thing as Caribbean sovereignty? I would have thought that there is a tension between the notion of Caribbean and sovereignty. And then there is a suggestion inherent in the topic that we move from a position of independence to interdependence. I'm wondering if that is really a natural transition, or if there is a state of interdependence within independence and within any other state of existence. I just also, so I'd like to invite your comments on that. Sure. And then just a matter of a little bit of a clarification. I think you said that legal training in the Caribbean started in 1975. I'm wondering if it wasn't the case where it actually started in 1970 at the Cave Hill campus of the University of the West Indies. And then we had the Heward in Law School, I believe, starting in 1973. So I just wanted the clarification of why you used 1975 as your point of demarcation. And then if you made reference to some cases like the Pandey and Gordon case, which you used to suggest that there was deference from the Privy Council to the decisions of the courts, a Caribbean court. So I'm sure that there are also examples of cases where there wasn't such a deference, and just concerning the matter of there being no appeal from St. Vincent and the Grenadines to the Privy Council in the last 10 years. I'm not sure if Jomo Thomas would agree with you on that. So I just ask those questions for your attention.
Thank you for that. I've been standing for a long time. Maybe you will excuse me if I sit. I use 75 because that is when the first graduates of the West Indies, trained lawyers, began to practice. It's a 5-year program. They started training in 1970. They did a 3-year degree program, and those who wanted to become lawyers had to then do a further 2 years at one of the law schools. So that's a minor problem. We're both right. The start was in 1970, but nobody started to practice until 1975. The issue of sovereignty, Caribbean sovereignty, the point is that small Caribbean countries have to pool their sovereignty. They have to yield a little bit of their sovereignty in order to enhance their independence. If St. Vincent and the Grenadines had to make it so have its own money supply, if there was no Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, I don't know whether we had the wherewithal to do that effectively. But we do it in common with St. Lucia and Dominica, Antigua, and all of these other countries. And that is an essential part of your sovereignty, being able to manage yourself, your fiscal affairs. So we do it in common with other countries. And so it's a kind of mutual and mutually reinforcing construct where, yes, each of the countries that belong to the ECCB are independent, but they all have agreed to have this institution that will provide for them this essential service. Similarly with the courts. Each country, and I said it in the lecture, each country has agreed in common, and this started from before we became independent, where each country agreed to be part of a single court structure. So there is no real dichotomy between independence and interdependence in that sense. The two are mutually reinforcing. What was the other point? Right. Well, I haven't seen, put it this way, and maybe I didn't express myself clear enough. I haven't seen any judgment of the Privy Council related to St. Vincent in the last 10 years. I don't know whether any appeal was lodged and was summarily dismissed and was never reported, but there is no judgment from a Vincentian. The last judgment was, is it Loveless, a murder matter? That was more than 10 years ago.
Good evening, everyone. Justice, thank you very much for that very uplifting. Oh, yeah, I'm getting there. Thank you very much for that very uplifting and rewarding educational exposition. My name is Laureen Fenton. I hail from the subcontinent of Montserrat, but had honorary Vincentian status conferred upon me when I lived in Canada from the Vincentians in Ottawa and those in Calgary, because I was at the time serving as St. Vincent's ambassador to Canada. In fact, it was the OECS ambassador to Canada. Shortly before coming here, when I was getting ready to come, I got a very disturbing, and forgive me for sort of shifting the discussion because you mentioned war at the end of your exposition. I got a very disturbing 3 WhatsApp messages. One with Fox News announcing that 10,000 warmongers, they were Marines and whomever, were already dispatched to the Caribbean. And 2 others talking about how Russia had sent 5,000 missiles to Venezuela. And even though I recognize that some of this could be AI generated, I haven't ruled out that. But it's of grave concern because this was being reported on Trump's Fox News. So I suspect there's an element of truth to it. My question is, from your knowledge of legal things or legal processes, does CARICOM, the Caribbean, of course minus Trinidad it would seem, have any legal options to take against Donald Trump? He's a bully, he says what he wants to do and he does it, but there are people who challenge him and win. So what, from a legal perspective, are our options as residents in the Caribbean who want to live in a zone of peace? We don't want war. Can you think of any options that we may have from a legal standpoint? Thank you very much for taking my question.
The short answer is no. These are political issues. And the point I was making at the end is that whereas in the past there were international political and legal norms, international law, that powerful states used to observe, today some of these states are not observing them. And what are small states to do? You're going to fight a war against the United States? You know, there's a famous joke in Trinidad where they said Eric Williams was once asked about getting rid of the base in Chagaramas, about going to war with America. He says, my problem is not if we lose the war. My problem is what you think would happen if we won the war. But the point is that these are political matters. These are matters, Dr. Gonsalves probably will give you a better answer, you know. But these are very political issues, and it is very disheartening, very sad for common folk like us that these international legal norms are not now being followed. They are being ignored. I mean, the idea that you can simply take the view that a vessel in international waters is headed to your country with drugs, and so you blow it to smithereens, That is contrary to these international legal norms that I spoke about. But who's going to challenge Mr. Trump and the United States?
I just want to make a comment in connection with the inter-independent, because I using the metaphor of cricket, because of the fact that we the West Indian people at least have a common history, shared history, being invaded by colonialism, the Carifuna, our indigenous people, and then the African people come here and were subjugated by the British colonialists. And they developed a game they call the British had a game for us, they call cricket. And by the fact that the West Indies, we unite as one and form a cricket team. And because of that, we was able to dominate cricket for about 15 years. So that metaphor should give us the desire to link our inter-independent more stronger, because we see the result. Are we as former slave children? And what we did when we unite to come to play cricket against the British other country, and we was able to dominate it for 15 years, and it making a point that nobody inferior or superior because we, who they say was inferior, take the game and beat them for 15 years. So as I simply saying, we as a Caribbean people must use the metaphor of cricket to strengthen our unity, because with that, we will be more powerful and could create a great legacy for the future generation that come in.
I agree entirely with you.
Good evening, Justice Honors. Thank you for a very, enjoyable presentation, and let me commend you as well, and nice to see you after 10 years. Welcome home. I just want to ask a quick question, because I know it comes up, and just this past week, the University of the West Indies had a Vice Chancellor forum, and the issue was raised. And I know PM Gonsalves made a presentation there as well on the question of the recent development with the 4 countries that have deepened the integration. The first question has to do with the instruments that are available to us as citizens to fully accede to the CCJ. I could distinctly remember in 2009, or leading up to 2009, we had fantastic cooperation until a couple of months before the referendum in 2009. And the referendum became a casualty of the political system. And the rest is history. And people like myself who were excited about that process and who were, to an extent, part of it, were very and deeply disappointed. And I think it was said that it's difficult for citizens to accede fully to the CCJ. My question is whether we have other instruments beside a referendum so that we could fast track that process that needs to happen. And we are 20 years behind now, heading for 20 years behind. So I would like you to speak to that. What other mechanisms we have or instruments. And I want to recall you, and this was mentioned earlier this week, in 2007, this region did something that was marvelous. And to an extent, it may have been imposed when we opened up this beautiful space called the Caribbean to cricket, international cricket. and people came to this space without a hassle. And the point was made early in the Vice Chancellor's forum this week, which is a point I have made and others have made across this region, that we do the things that we need to do when we want to do them. In other words, if we are serious about the final quota for the Caribbean, I think it could happen. I don't know if it's a lack of political will, but at a time when you have a generally and highly educated region, including this country, we seem to be taking some backward steps. So I just wanted you to speak to that issue, because it is not new. We did it in 2007. We made this region a space for the globe. And all the legal impediments, we were able to waive them or remove them in certain instances. And then a couple of months after, it was difficult for Maori to enter, or a couple of years after, it's difficult for Maori to enter Barbados. Come on. I don't know if it's lack of political will. I'd like to hear you on that. I'm getting too emotional. I might say some things that I don't want to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, I'll deal with them in the order that you set out. The first one, very important, interesting issue. There are 4 OECS states whose constitutions have an almost identical regime for moving from the Privy Council to another court. That is St. Kitts and Nevis and Dominica and St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The provisions are identical, save that in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and in the Dominica constitutions, there is what I am convinced in my mind is a minor misprint. And the constitutions of both St. Vincent and the Grenadines and St. Lucia were printed by Her Majesty's Printery about the same time. These 2 countries went towards independence at the same time. The misprint has to do with the way in which one of the sections refers to another section. So that, for example, instead of referring to section 89, it refers to section 88. In Dominica and St. Lucia, it's the same regime, but it doesn't have that mistake. In Dominica and St. Lucia, therefore, in Dominica and St. Kitts. In Dominica and St. Kitts and Nevis, therefore, it is very clear that there are 2 routes to move away from the Privy Council. One is by a 2/3 vote in the Parliament and the agreement of the British government. And that is how Dominica St. Lucia, Dominica acceded. I'm mixing it up. Dominica and St. Kitts, they have one regime. St. Lucia and St. Vincent, they have another one. It shouldn't be put that way because the same regime. It's just that there's this misprint in St. Lucia and in St. Vincent. That one section refers to a wrong section. In Dominica, that didn't have the problem, they easily came to us because the Parliament, 2/3 of the Parliament voted in favor, and the British government agreed that yes, it would be invidious for the British government to say, no, you can't go, you must stay with our British Privy Council. They will never do that. So that was not a problem. In St. Lucia, that has the problem that St. Vincent has. There was a decision of the Court of Appeal on the issue of, is this thing really a misprint? Because the literal interpretation makes no sense. it has no logic about it. And it is only if you appreciate that it is a misprint that it makes sense, because it is the same regime as Dominica and St. Kitts have. And the Court of Appeal was asked to give an interpretative judgment on what is really the meaning of this thing here. And they said, well, this is a misprint, and therefore what it means is that we have the same regime as Dominica and St. Kitts have. And so St. Lucia was able to come to the CCJ on the same 2/3 majority in Parliament, and the British government accepting that, yes, you have our blessings to go. If that interpretative judgment was wrong, the British government advisors would not have agreed to give the green light for St. Lucia to go to the CCJ, because they would have said, what you are doing is fraught, because you are asking us to agree to an unconstitutionality. And the British government advisors would not have allowed the government of the United Kingdom to agree to something like that. And so by extrapolation, we in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, particularly as St. Lucia has gone through and accepted that this is a misprint, and therefore all that is needed is a 2/3 majority in the Parliament and the agreement of the British government, we in St. Vincent have that same regime. And so all that is holding us up is that we have not yet had the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines agreeing by a 2/3 majority to come to the CCJ. And so I want the political leaders of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to pledge, of course this is election season, that nothing like that would happen between now and elections, I assume. But whoever wins the next election, and whether they win a 2/3 majority or not, because this is not a party issue, this is a national issue, and that whoever wins, the other party, if the winning party can't make a 2/3 majority on its own, that the other party would support this, because you're holding the country back by not allowing Vincentian appeals to go right up to a final court. On the issue of the open space, I couldn't agree with you more. And what is very disheartening about that is that it is the ICC that said to Caribbean governments, you want to host a World Cup? Well, here's what you have to do. You have to create one open space. And because we wanted to host a World Cup, we created the open space. And then the World Cup finished, we closed back up the space. Even though, as far as I'm aware, nothing untoward happened during that time that would have required us to quickly close back up the space. So, again, that is a political issue.
Thanks. The Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, like the other constitutions, were passed by an order in council. Though it is humiliating, presumably legally, and you may give an opinion on this. If you cannot get a 2/3 in the House, you can ask, presumably the government, the Privy Council in the United Kingdom, not the Privy Council in its juridical capacity, but in the political capacity, for them to advise the king to allow you to go to the to go to the CCJ or to finish appeals to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. I'm just wondering from a, if you have, I'm sure you have given that some thought also. It's a humiliating option, but do you think that's an available option?
If I advise the British government on that option, I would say, look, these countries already have a constitution that prescribes a mechanism, and therefore they should utilize the mechanisms in their own constitutions. Theoretically, that may be possible, but I'm not sure how feasible it would be.
Good afternoon. My name is Joan Hoyt. Someone from above the river community, I appreciate the introduction that you gave about the history, which involves my people and the Garifuna. I was a little concerned when you spoke about the current Garifuna population as being in places like Bayaboo. I think you mentioned work. Oh, the names. Yes, I see. Because I am always defending the above the river community, and not hearing that mention, it's like, what is going on here? Okay, so thank you, I misheard. The other thing about delinking the Privy Council, and I like the fact that you said Chatoué fought for our sovereignty, and that as an appellate attorney in the United States, hearing that for 10 years there has been no appeals, I find it, well, no appellate decision. I find it staggering. And for me, it's like justice denied. And I say that because quickly, I came down and I came with a friend who lives in Calicoa. She has a house. She found someone living in her house because the person she left to take care of it was renting it unbeknownst to her. We tried to get the police involved, and it was like the police didn't care because that person who was living in the house had tenant right, despite the fact that that person was illegally in the house. That's neither here nor there, but she was afraid of not only the cost of seeking an attorney. Actually, Jomo was suggested we should go to him. We didn't because she said the cost of it was exorbitant. So this whole thing about justice denied is really problematic, and I hope that we can get over that. And about sovereignty, I read somewhere that when William Young, the British surveyor, first came to St. Vincent to cut it up into plantation after Chatoué was before Chatoué was killed, sorry. He met with Chatoué because the French had just ceded St. Vincent to the British. And William said, we're here and you are now the subjects of the king, and if you pledge allegiance to the king, then you can live on the land you have, essentially. And Chatoué said, what king? We have no king. And I say that because when King Charles was coronated recently, our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, was interviewed by the BBC. And I listened to that interview. And the reporter asked him, so are you here to pay allegiance to the king? And he said, almost mimicking Chatoué, which I was really proud to hear, we pay no allegiance to the king. My allegiance is to the people of St. Vincent. And I was really, really proud of that. And Mr. Prime Minister, I urge you to put your money where your mouth is, and all these crown lands that we have, the St. Vincent Royal Police Force, the Majesty's Court, why aren't we still having those names? Aren't they allegiance? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, we have to do like Dominica. We have to have a constitution in which we replace the monarchy as our head of state with our own head of state, whether we elect him nationally or the parliament elects him or something like that, you know. But it is intriguing that you can aspire to any kind of office except head of state in St. Vincent, because that is reserved for Charles and his children and their children, and it's ridiculous.
I want to remind Joan, though, that in the referendum in 2009, north of the river voted to keep the queen. I want to remind her. No, I'm just not saying that as a fact.
What was the fact?
It doesn't, I'm just saying, it's a fact that in 2009, north of the river, under the direction of the New Democratic Party and others, voted to keep the queen in a referendum. The queen at the time. So that I'm not in any way denying what you're saying. I'm only making the point that the matter is complicated. We need to have an honest conversation on it. The matter is complicated because we had a referendum and persons inside of the New Democratic Party itself and some others, fellow travelers, said the constitution which we are putting forward is far superior than the one which we had. But we ain't bothering with that. We want to give Ralph and the ULP a black eye so we can change the government. We'll come to that later. Of course, the people in 2010 voted us back in 2015, 2020. And if you're a betting man, the odds. So I just want to make that point. Everybody knows where I stand on it because my position of 2009 has not altered. My position on 2009 has not altered. But that's the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making. Because I'll give you an anecdote. We're repairing a bridge. Well, we're building a bridge, which is called God Save the Queen Bridge. So, Adrian, my people went there and public servants. So I asked them to raise that question in the consultation. He said, well, one of the issues which we have to discuss is to change the name to something else. And there was total silence. And an old man in the back got up and said, but why would you want to change it? He said, so the public servant, a progressive individual, said, but the Queen is dead. He said, what I got to do with it? We therefore have a serious educational issue to address. There are people in this room who I know campaigned to keep the existing constitution and the Queen and the Privy Council. Right here. Those who are inside here. So let us not bury our heads in the sand. Let us be honest with one another if we're having a serious conversation. You understand what I mean, Joan? I'm not disputing anything what you're saying. You know, Her Majesty this and that. We changed the oath of allegiance in the Parliament. You had to have an oath of allegiance to the Queen, to Her Majesty, her heirs and successors. So help me God. We changed it to, because that was permissible under our law. Because in some countries, the oath is embedded in the Constitution. In ours, it's only in the standing orders. So we simply pass a bill so that those standing orders will have to take second place to the bill. So we swear allegiance to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, not as one working class man from the rural area had once sworn in St. Lucia. I heard him. He swore allegiance to Her Majesty, her heirs and successors. One of your Sir Vincent Flosac, I was sitting next to him, then Chief Justice. He said, that kind of oath can get you to the Tower of London.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your interventions and your participation and for coming out. At this point, I would invite Jamisha Daniel to do the vote of thanks.
Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Honorable Curtis King, Minister of Education and National Reconciliation, Honorable Justice Adrian Saunders, Honorable Rennie Batiste, Dr. Risa Noel McBannett, other invited guests, good evening. Yes. On behalf of the University of the West Indies Global Campus and our Director and Head of Site, I extend heartfelt thanks and appreciation to all who contributed to the success of this evening's event. The Office of the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister, we thank you very much for being here with us this evening. The Permanent Secretary and staff of the Ministry of Tourism and the Tourism Authority, Mr. McGregor Steely of the National Lotteries Authority, the Agency for Public Information, SVG-TV, the National Broadcasting Corporation, Radio 705, particularly directed Ms. Dion John and Mr. Johnny P. Straker for their invaluable support and partnership. We also extend heartfelt thanks to Ms. Rennie Batiste for her gracious introduction of our speaker, and to Ms. Theresa Daniel for so ably chairing this evening's proceedings. And we have a small token for each of you ladies. Dr. McBannett, if you can present. Ms. Batiste? And Ms. Theresa Daniel. And those of you who are joining us virtually, we express sincere appreciation for your presence and participation. I'm sure each and every one of you can say that you're not disappointed that you came here tonight. Especially on an evening where there was so many other options for you to attend, and you chose to be here with us at the Global Campus, and we are sincerely thankful for you being here with us. Finally, to our esteemed feature speaker, Justice Adrian Saunders, a proud son of our Vincentian soil, whose scholarship has long informed and inspired both my teaching and many of our students' understanding of key legal doctrines. We extend our deepest gratitude. You said thank you as soon as we asked when Dr. McBannett reached out to you, and thank you, thank you, thank you. We are truly honored that you accepted our invitation to deliver this year's address on a topic so vital to the strengthening of Caribbean sovereignty and integration, and reminding us from whence we came and where we are going, and that's very important. We trust that your time with us here at the Global Campus and at home has been meaningful and memorable for you as it has been for us. We've had an enjoyable week with you, so thank you very much, and please do come and visit us again, and we also look forward to partnering with you on other ventures. Yes, come more often. As we close this evening's proceedings, I take this opportunity to wish each and everyone, oh, before I do that, Justice Saunders, please come forward. This is a token from us here at Global Campus. We hope you enjoy it. Yes, another token. We hope you enjoy it. And you remember us when you go through the package. Thanks. If you want to, you have any closing remarks to the audience? No, you're good.
Just thank you very much, and thank you for your patience. It's been a long evening, and I know that, as was said, that there were competing things that you could be doing, so thank you very much for being here.
So I take this opportunity to wish each and everyone a happy and safe 46th Independence. May the insights of this evening inspire us all to continue to work together to build our beloved nation. And so as we conclude, I invite you to join us outside for light refreshments and fellowship. Thank you very much.